The park was quiet, almost too quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Elena Brooks sat on a weathered wooden bench, her journal resting on her lap, its pages blank like the words she had never spoken. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying secrets she was too afraid to voice. For years, silence had been her companion, doubt her shadow. But tonight felt different. Tonight, the air seemed to whisper back. What if the courage you've been searching for was never in the world around you, but in the whispers inside you? Elena Brooks had always been the kind of person people noticed, but rarely listened to. She carried herself with quiet grace, walking through life like a shadow in a crowded room. Growing up, her thoughts had always burned bright, but her voice trembled whenever she tried to let them out. She remembered the countless moments when her voice froze on her lips, the raised hand in class she lowered too quickly, the conversations she wanted to join but couldn't, the dreams she had written in her journal but never dared to share. Her silence wasn't empty. It was heavy. It was filled with questions she never asked, answers she never gave, and stories she never told. Every time she chose silence, she convinced herself it was safer. Safer not to risk judgment, not to face rejection, not to fail. But safety, she realized, had come with a price. It had stolen her courage. At 25, Elena had a life that looked steady from the outside. A modest apartment, a stable job, and a few friends who saw her as gentle but reserved. Yet inside, she felt a constant ache. Not because she lacked opportunity, but because she lacked the courage to seize it. Her journal had become her sanctuary, filled with words she never spoke aloud. Sometimes she would sit by her window late at night, watching the city lights flicker, whispering to herself the words she wished she could say to the world. She dreamed of writing stories that inspired, of standing in front of people and letting them hear the strength she kept buried. But dreams only whispered back when she lacked the courage to act. And so she lived caught between two worlds, the one she showed to others and the one inside her that longed to break free. The turning point came on an ordinary Tuesday. Elena had stayed late at work, the office nearly empty, the hum of fluorescent lights echoing louder than her own thoughts. She was cleaning up her desk when she noticed a flyer left on the bulletin board near the door. Local Writers Open Mic Night. Share your voice. The words felt like they were glowing. She froze, staring at it. Her heart beat faster. She imagined herself standing in front of strangers, reading something from her journal. Immediately, doubt drowned the thought. You're not ready. Your words aren't good enough. They'll laugh. But beneath the noise of fear, a smaller, quieter voice whispered, "But what if they listen?" That night, Elena carried the flyer home. She placed it on her desk, next to her journal. For days, she avoided it. Each time she saw it, her stomach tightened. But something about those words, "share your voice," wouldn't let her go. One evening, after another long day of pretending she was fine, she sat by the window, journal open. Her pen trembled as she wrote, not for herself this time, but as if preparing to be heard. The words spilled out like a confession she'd been holding for years. She didn't know if she would ever have the courage to go to that open mic, but for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine it. That single thought, the possibility, was enough to light a spark. Because courage doesn't always arrive as a roar. Sometimes it begins as a whisper, asking only one thing. What if you try? The flyer remained on her desk for weeks, a quiet reminder of the choice she hadn't yet made. Each morning, Elena would glance at it, her chest tightening with both fear and longing. Her journal, once a place of private comfort, had become a battlefield where doubt and hope clashed in ink. At first, the whispers inside her were faint. Write one more line. Share one thought. Speak once today. They weren't demands, just gentle nudges. And though she often ignored them, sometimes, just sometimes, she listened. She began sharing a sentence or two with a close friend, reading out loud in the safety of her apartment. Each time her voice cracked, but each time she felt a flicker of warmth in her chest. One evening, she attended the open mic night not to perform, but to watch. The cafe was small, filled with mismatched chairs, the air rich with the smell of coffee and nervous anticipation. People stood one by one, reading poetry, short stories, even personal confessions. Elena sat in the back, her journal clutched tightly, her palms damp. For the first time, she realized something life-changing. No one was perfect. Some stumbled over words, others read too quickly, but every voice mattered. Walking home, she felt the whispers stronger than ever. They no longer said, "What if you fail?" Instead, they whispered, "What if you belong here?" That night, she wrote with a fire she hadn't felt before. Her words poured out raw and honest about silence, about the fear of never being heard, about how even the quietest whispers can grow into roars of courage. She didn't know if she would ever have the courage to go to that open mic, but she knew one thing for certain. Her voice was no longer silent. The whispers had begun to rise, and they were no longer asking if, they were asking when. The night finally arrived. She hadn't planned for it. Not really. But when she walked past the cafe and saw the chalkboard sign, "Open mic tonight," something inside her refused to let her keep walking. Her heart pounded as if urging her forward, and before she knew it, she was standing inside. The room buzzed with quiet conversations, the smell of roasted coffee and faint laughter filling the air. Elena's journal felt heavy in her hands, each page trembling with the weight of her words. She signed her name on the list before she could talk herself out of it. As the evening unfolded, she listened to others perform. Some spoke with ease, their voices strong. Others stumbled, nervous and unsure. Each performance reminded her that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was carrying fear onto the stage with you. Then her name was called. Elena Brooks. For a moment, the world stopped. Her hands shook, her throat tightened, but she walked toward the stage. The whispers were deafening now, not of doubt, but of encouragement. You belong. You are ready. Your voice matters. She stood behind the microphone, staring at the sea of expectant faces. For a terrifying heartbeat, silence swallowed her. But then she opened her journal. Her voice cracked as the first words left her lips, fragile yet steady enough to carry. She read about silence, about the fear of never being heard, about how even the quietest whispers can grow into roars of courage. With each sentence, her voice grew stronger. The crowd leaned in, not out of pity, but out of connection. She saw heads nodding, eyes softening. Her words were not just hers anymore, they belonged to everyone listening. By the time she finished, the room erupted in applause. Elena lowered her journal, tears brimming in her hazel eyes. For the first time, she wasn't just Elena, the girl with the silent words. She was Elena, the girl who spoke and was heard. That night, the whispers inside her didn't fade. They transformed into something new, a voice of her own. The cafe lights dimmed, the applause faded, but the echo of Elena's words lingered in the air. She walked off stage trembling, not from fear anymore, but from the intensity of release. She had given her silence a voice. For days afterward, her life felt different. The whispers that once told her to stay quiet now encouraged her to rise. At work, she began speaking up in meetings, her voice steady even when her heart raced. In small conversations, she dared to share her ideas instead of keeping them buried. What surprised her most wasn't how people reacted, but how she reacted to herself. For the first time, she looked in the mirror and didn't see someone hiding. She saw someone becoming. Weeks later, the cafe invited her back. She hesitated, the old fear brushing against her heart, but then she remembered the night she had always